Welcome to today's session on private consumption and the climate crisis and the climate action in Berlin. I'm happy to welcome you here. My name is Felix, and Johannes is also joining us. We are part of the facilitation crew that is guiding all of us through today's session. We're happy to see you here. Today, we will try to engage you as much as possible. So as everyone has the camera on, that's totally nice. You can also turn off your camera if you don't feel comfortable. That's good as well. Apart from that, it would be nice if you mute yourself while not talking. As soon as you talk, of course, it's nice to turn on your microphone. You can raise your hands whenever you feel like you have a question, but we have particular slots for questions. But feel free to ask questions, to use the chat for anything. Apart from that, we just want to say that we have quite a program that we go through, so feel free to join in any moment. We will go online in a bit, and with that, I will hand over to Yannick, who will then go online and give a quick introduction to what this is all about and the project in general, and then we will keep on facilitating you through this process and today's session.
Thank you very much, Felix, and thank you very much, Johannes, as well. I hope you can hear me well. We are live on Facebook now. I'm sorry, we are live on YouTube now with this second climate talk of the Young Climate Campus Berlin, part of the Young Climate Collaboration Berlin YCCB project. My name is Yannick Petersen. I'm part of the YCCB project management team at Lab Concepts, which is the event agency supporting the Berlin Senate Department for the Environment, Transport and Climate Protection in the creation of this collaboration project, both consisting of the Young Climate Campus and the Young Climate Conference. What are we doing and why are we doing it is that the YCCB project in turn is part of the Berlin Energy and Climate Protection Program 2030, short BEK 2030, which is a milestone towards the implementation of the Paris Agreement on the local level in Berlin, and an important stepping stone on Berlin's pathway to becoming a carbon neutral city by the year 2050. So the general aim of this project is being aimed at young adults between the ages of 18 and 28, for them to gain knowledge first about the 6 action areas of the BEK 2030, today looking at private house consumption, and to then use this knowledge to identify open questions and to then from there devise and formulate their own claims, which are then handed over at the Young Climate Conference Berlin, taking place in a digital format in June this year, to political decision makers. We also have an Instagram channel, so please check us out on YCC Berlin on Instagram, where young media agents are publishing their own content on the aspects and the action areas that I have just been talking about. And of course, after this, we have a couple of more climate talks coming up on the other action areas, and we also have workshops coming up where you will find more methodological information on how to, for example, formulate claims or to communicate climate facts. So I'm very, very happy to have you here. And as you can see from what I've just said, this collaboration is an ongoing project. So we kind of work our way through different formats and events. So it would be absolutely lovely to have you on board for the rest of this campus and the rest of the project as such, of course. I would like to hand back to the moderation now. Before I do that, let me just tell you that I will be a tech host in the back office, so to say, to support you with any technical issues that you might have. And I will be also working on the virtual whiteboard that we have established for this talk or for the campus as such, which is called Miro. And I will be following the discussion and noting down some interesting points, open questions, of course, also your questions. And I hope that if time allows it, we can have a quick glimpse at that whiteboard at the very end of this session. Thank you very, very much, and wishing everyone a very nice and successful event. And back to the moderation.
Okay, thank you. And hello from me too. I'm Johannes, also from the Kippung Kollektiv. And before we start, we would just start with a little bit of an interactive energizer. You don't have to do it, but if you want to, feel free. Since we talk about consumption today, let's find something green right next to you that you like to consume, or that you might consume sometime. So that's now the task for you. Something green, and you can and you should stand up for it. All right, what did you get? A mattress. Okay. A pen. Nice. I have some rapid cove test. All right. A card. Looks good. Thank you. So don't worry if you don't understand why we did this. It doesn't really have a deeper meaning. But now we start with deeper meanings, and with this talk today, or this evening. So today is, as I said, about private consumption. And in the part of the BEK, there are a few points that the BEK 2030 points out. For example, sustainable event management, or household appliances and stuff like that. So we're going to talk with Hannah and Nikolai, and I just let Felix introduce them.
All right, thank you very much, Johannes. So we're happy to have Hannah and Nikolai today with us. We'll kind of share their experience, their ideas, and so on, working with sustainability, consumption, and so on here in Berlin, where we are right now. Great to have you here. I will quickly introduce the two of them to us, so you have an idea what kind of questions you can ask and where their answers might come from. So first of all, Nikolai is here with us, who has a background in kind of technology and sociology, and he was one of he used to work for the Green Party for a bit, and he's one of the co-founders of the idea in Germany which is called Leihladen, Library of Things. He's also the founder of the first Leihladen, Library of Things in Berlin in 2012, and working on shared economy, sustainable consumption, and so on. Yeah, great to have you here, Nikolai.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation.
Great. And then we have Hannah. Hannah works as for Clubliebe, which is kind of trying to engage the clubbing and event industry into more sustainable patterns, as to say, synergizing how we can get sustainability and clubbing together. How can we create a green club culture, and does a lot of workshops, education, discussions, and so on. So great to also have you and your perspectives here with us.
Thanks for the invitation also.
Great. So I'll hand back over to Johannes to guide us through this process again.
Okay, before I do, just one thing about our code of conduct. In the whole series of these talks, but also at the conference, we obviously don't want any harassment or how do you say that, discrimination, for example, homophobia or racism and stuff like that. So if anything comes up, or if anyone discriminates you or someone else, there is an email on our internet page, so you can just click on it. Or if it's during this talk, you can just write a private message to Marie. So yeah, you're not alone with it. Also, I already talked about the website. There are a lot of infos on the website about the talks, about the next talks that are coming, but also about the conference. So you can really visit it. And the Instagram was already presented by Yannick, so I don't have to talk about that again. So last time we talked about buildings and urban development, and also about how individuals can or have a lot of, or right now at least, more space than they should if the city is growing and stuff like that. So how they can reduce the space they need to for like environmental reasons. And today it's about consumption, for example, of energy, but also of other individual things. And the big question of this part at the BEK is how we can decouple energy consumption and population growth, or actually the whole consumption from CO2 emissions. Because on a personal level, people often say that we should consume less. On an economy level, that people don't like that really. We see how it turns out during the Corona economy. So it's kind of a fight there. And that's how we start. And how much actually people can do. And that's the first question to Nikolai. And the question is, what is the impact we can make as consumers? Does it really make a difference?
Okay. Nice question. Thank you. I try to point out, how big is the impact. I've just a little diagram or statistic, and when you see there's something like food or mobility, and we have got the consumption of non-food. Yeah, you see that's around 25% of the personal CO2 emissions. So that's from the PENDOS CO2 counter, and so that's so every one of you and in your families or your flats, you can make impact with your consumption, or with shifting your consumption to more, I would say more collaborative consumption, so you can make a big difference. And later I can make some examples how what actions you can do to make a climate more climate action.
All right, thank you very much. Then a question to Hannah. So what is your experience with engaging with young people, maybe some people who are not involved in thinking about sustainability? What kind of experience do you make in involving them through, for example, clubbing into this whole thing? And what do you get from this, and what do you want to share with us, for example?
It is also an interesting question, and I guess I could focus on if that is really an important topic to the guests who came to the clubs. And for instance, one of my colleagues did a study about that, and she went to the clubs and asked the people who visit the clubs, the guests, and she found actually out that all the people in Berlin which went to clubs are very interesting, and also to have those clubs sustainable. Also, when they are not focusing on sustainable development in their private fields, but at the same time, they want to have a sustainable culture. So it's a bit paradox, these two arguments against each other, but we found out that the young people are very interested in the topic, also in the club scene, and they want to get involved in the scene and also wants to make the culture more sustainable. So the question is more how we can actually get the people involved in taking action by themselves in their private field. So this is our big aim, that we want to communicate sustainable development with the help of the clubs, with help of parties, also with communication measurements, and also as the clubs or the music clubs are of course kind of attractive to young people, and you can communicate on eye level to the people and of course reach a wide range of young people. And that is our main aim, to make the sustainable development as attractive as possible, to get them all involved and not to say you have to do this and this and this. Our approach is more to say, we have an idea, maybe you think it's cool for you also, and look at that club. This club is doing this climate action and it is so attractive, and maybe you want to do this also at your home. So this is our main aim with the project. We want to show that climate action is attractive and has something to do with fun, and we want to get all the people involved. So this is our main aim, and I guess it is also good to communicate on an eye level, to communicate in the language for the target group you want to reach. And yes, so I think it is possible, and also the people are interested. It is now more the question how we can really get the action to the people in their private field.
All right. Thank you very much. So just a question before going back to Nikolai for some questions. I saw, for example, on the climate strike last year, there was the club commission who I think were the best part of the whole demonstrations, and everyone joined them. So everyone left Potsdamer Platz to go to Alexanderplatz because the music was leaving. So this is really nice to engage people by that, people who might not actually go to a climate strike because they find it boring. On the other hand, you work also with the clubbing industry. How easy is it to actually change, not only talk about consumption and how we should all behave more sustainably, but also to actually make clubs more sustainable?
Yeah, it is possible, and we now can see some results. Of course, the clubs are not open yet, and we cannot measure the really effective consumption of the energy and things like that. But what we now see that is that a lot of clubs come to us and ask us now, also in the COVID pandemic, because now some of the clubs have some time and are motivated to also to get more sustainable by themselves. And what we can see now is that the people, for instance, the club owners really want to become more sustainable. And what we do is that we go to the clubs and look where you can save some energy, for example, what for fridges they do offer, or how what is the energy they're using, is it green energy, and things like that. And we have a look then where is the most potential to save energy and the most potential to stop the CO2 emissions, which had a huge amount in music clubs during one week, for example. And so we did this with some clubs, some famous clubs and some small clubs. And when they will do open again, hopefully that is an active or a direct action, climate action thing, what they are doing. And I think that is now so much more important. There's no other way, at least, to do it like the green way for the clubs. Also because the first reason for that is that the people want to have them sustainable. And the second reason, of course, is that they will save also a lot of financial budget, for example, when they now do the right investigations to have a look on their energy, for example. So this is, for example, one thing we do. We go to the clubs and really say to them what they can do. So this is the energy consumption we do. And also we have some round tables where club owners come and, for example, discuss about the possibilities, how to become more sustainable in the future, and also how we can use now the pandemic to think about how we will get from this crisis to a more sustainable way of running. This is our main aim now. And also we are doing now an online program for club owners where the people there develop now own sustainable strategies for their clubs. And we have a lot of people there, many clubs, and all the people are working so hard on those sustainable strategies. It's good to see and nice to see that they are also willing to do that.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Super interesting. And it's a field that kind of connects many people and we don't really think about it at the first thought. Yeah, Johannes, I think you have another question for Nikolai, right?
Yeah, I think I would go also into your experiences with, what was the English word for Leihladen?
Library of things, we can call it, but Nikolai maybe wants to, yeah.
At first I want to create a bridge to this, what Hannah said before. I think the clubs are a place where community is created. Yeah, and I think this is very important. And I'm very happy that people and the clubs become consciousness about climate change. So that's the first point, and the second point is I'm coming from the collaborative consumption. So I had 10 years ago I had so much stuff at home, for example a drill, and in general you use a drill just for some minutes, and so it's better to share the drill in your community. Yeah, so with your friends or with neighborhood or people in your kids. And then I started to open the Library of Things or the lending shop, Leila, in Prenzlauer Berg, and we collect stuff from the private households. So some people had a yoga mattress, some people had garden stuff, some people have drill, a ladder. So when you look to your flats, there's so much things this is unused, so you can use it better in a community. And so you need something like platforms or like public spaces. Yeah, and so I created the Library of Things, Leila, or the platform. Yeah, so the platform COSUM, and on this level you can share your stuff. And why we do it? Because it has a climate impact. When you use a drill in your community, you need less drills. You use it in a better way. So community is a positive impact for saving CO2 emissions. Yeah, and so the work of the climate or of the club scene is very important, that we create a community, that we have that we have a community, and on the other side we have some catchy things to participate the young people for a good consuming style. Yeah. Okay.
Now to the question. And by the way, if anyone in the audience has a question too, you can obviously ask them, but as long as that doesn't exist, I'll just continue. And so to you, Nikolai, you already talked about lending things back and forth. What I find really interesting, because in a sustainable matter, that's really important. But if you look at the BEK, for example, it's actually asking how we can decouple consumption from growing CO2 emissions. Because the idea behind that is that we consume more, so the economy is growing further and further. So what do you say about that?
Very difficult question. I think on a personal level, it's a philosophical question. So when you start sharing, for example, or borrowing, for example, tools like a drill or a saw or a ladder or outdoor stuff like a bag or a tent, and then you decouple with resources. You don't have it at home. You have a community space where you can go in, and you have the access instead of ownership. So you have more something like a rights management. You when you can use it, then you have it. So you have less resources or a more resource efficiency. So that's when you have less resources use, then you decouple from CO2. You have less CO2 emissions because you have less production of tools or garden stuff and so on. And that's the path of decoupling CO2 emissions through another style of consumption, through community or collaborative consumption. Yeah.
Okay, so your goal is actually to reduce buying things and producing things while remaining the consumption?
That's, I don't really understand the question, but can you repeat it with some other words?
Of course. So in normal economics, you produce something, then people buy it and consume it. And buying it means in economics consuming. So, but what you do, or what you said, is you buy something and then more people consume it. So you actually consume it more, which you can't measure in economics, but you still have more impact on it. And that's the idea, right? Which would mean that actually that means the economy shrinks because people are not buying new things anymore.
I think you see it also in the normal economy that, for example, the car makers start sharing services, and but it's very important that on the personal level. So, for example, you say you want to reduce your CO2 footprint. So, and one way is to reduce your consumption, or on the other side, you borrow things. You borrow a book or a tent, or So that's two solutions for a more climate-friendly consumption. Yeah, less consumption and collaborative consumption. Yeah. And yeah.
All right, great. Thanks, Nikolai, on your experience with the library of things and how it works. Also building the bridge to how community is actually important. I would like to ask if anyone who's in the audience right now has a question to either Nikolai or Hannah also has a statement they want to share, any experience they want to share regarding with what has been said, feel free to just share. You can raise your hand or just write something small into the chat. Okay, still no questions. That's totally fine. Then I would like to kind of engage you in just what we call, it's like a barometer, that is kind of, you have your hands and you can kind of share, this is like extremely high and this is extremely low. And I have like some 2-3 questions for you where I would like to ask you, and I would like everyone to participate. And if you if you feel free to turn on your camera. The first question is now, talking about all of this, how much do you think you have already engaged with thinking about how your consumption has an impact? Like, how much time of your mind do you use for thinking about these things? This would be like every second, everything I touch, I think about its impact. Then you can kind of put your hand up. If you feel like it comes up sometimes, then you can put your hand down. Okay, I see everyone is rather high. Some middle ground. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, maybe then the second question is, how much, while thinking about these things, how much do you feel like what you do actually has an impact? Like, if you think about it, it's nice, but the second step is, how much do you think this actually makes a difference? When you think like, this, what I do makes a lot of difference, you can raise your hands up again. If you think like it has very little difference, then you can have your hands down. We see again how the temperature is here. Okay, we have it's higher and lower. So I would like to kind of ask the two extremes. Maybe Isabel, if you want to just share why you feel like what you do kind of has rather little impact.
I think the problem is that because not everybody does it, the few people who are very conscious about it and try to do things about it, doesn't really make that big of an impact. Like, I like to talk about this with my parents and so on. And we usually, like, we always come back to the fact that just because we do it, it doesn't really matter much because it's like a drop in the ocean. So yeah, that does get you down a bit, like thinking about it in total.
All right, cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Then we have the other extreme, which would be Marie. You had your hands high up. Maybe you want to share.
Yes, I think especially in this field of action, when we are talking about consumption, we as citizens can do a lot, because last week, in terms of housing, we learned that the most or the big steps has to be steps of the politicians, and we need new rules in politics. And I think today we talk a lot about what we can do as citizens, which impact we can have in our daily consumption. And this also leads me to another question, because I'm wondering, especially today in this field of action, what is the part of politics and economy? Which new frameworks do we need from them, that not only we as consumers can have an impact, but also what we need from politics to improve our behavior?
Yeah, great, thanks. So you kind of say there's an impact, but also there's this dimension of we actually need another level which kind of has to engage. All right, thank you very much. And then I have a last question to you. And again, it's high if you feel like you would like to do things, but there's like a lack of alternatives, or you kind of feel like the alternatives are super expensive and so on, then you put your hands up. If you feel like there are alternatives, it's kind of the problem is myself in a way. I feel like I don't do it because of several reasons, because I'm too lazy and so on. So if you feel like the problem is really mainly there are no alternatives, it's too expensive, put your hands again up. If you feel like it's rather you, then you can rather have your hands down. So let's try again what the temperature in this room looks like. Okay, so it's all in the middle ground. Yeah, maybe does someone want to share why they feel like it's in between? Yeah, maybe Isabella, do you feel like would you want to share? Obviously, you don't have to.
Yeah. So I do think that there are a lot of things that we can do that save money, you know, just consuming less in general. And I think that is a very easy way to go. But of course, as far as like a lot of like things that are diet related, and I don't know, like really moving into like a zero waste lifestyle, that is like very, very time and money consuming, I think, especially at the beginning.
All right. Thank you. So I kind of feel like a lot of people feel like it's both sides, and there's also the comment in the chat referring to it really depends on the subject, on the product we consume, what alternatives do exist, and so on. Great. All right. Thanks a lot for sharing your opinions here. I'll hand over again to Johannes. Okay.
Thank you. And since the last question went to Nikolai, and getting back to Hannah, Nikolai already talked about how we can reduce consumption, or not reducing consumption, but in an economic way at least, by sharing things. But in the club scene, that's not really the same way, right? So in the club scene, you would rather try to reduce energy consumption and stuff like that. Or you like looking at first? So.
I get no. Actually, I guess that sharing is a very important point for the clubs, especially for the so-called underground clubs in Berlin, because they are all different collectives and communities, and sometimes they just need to share things to, for example, have a fork machine on a party, because they do not have money to have their own. So they need to share things at least. And also in general, the underground club scene is acting such as sustainable as possible for them. It also is sometimes the question of the capacities they have, but sharing is also a topic in the club scene. Maybe not for the commercial clubs and the bigger ones, but for example, there are also some rooms or collectives in Berlin. They are only there it's like the idea of, what was his name? The idea of Nikolai from the store, that there are also, for example, decoration stores where you can go as a club owner or as a party host and just get some things, like, for example, decoration you need for one party only. So you can go to the store and just collect it for the party and then bring it back. So yeah, I think it's also a topic in the club scene to share things.
Okay.
Yeah, I will just say something. I have this little pyramid, and maybe you can read it.
Yes.
For example, what Hannah say is that we reuse materials. For example, not just use it one time and then throw it away, and then the waste is burned, in a big energy plant. So we have CO2 emissions. So it's important to reuse things, or to share, for example, a fog machine. In the old our shop, we had a fog machine and tried to lend it. And for me, it's very important that clubs have a nice competence. They know what is fun, and fun is very important to motivate people to change their behavior. So when we share stuff, then it's fun, yeah, and it's not just CO2 impact. So people, I think there are two or more characters of or types of people. Some people who behave with fun, and the other behave because they say, oh, we have to change because of climate change and other stuff. In Germany we will say, manche sind vernünftig und andere handeln so, wie sie Bock drauf haben. Yeah, and so that's that's very important, that we connect both, or that we know how both types of people are motivate for the big change we need to get a climate friendly economy and society. So that's a very important task for the clubs. Yeah.
I find it really interesting because both of your projects kind of come at an, or have a new view on a person, because sorry if I always go back to economics, but that's what I studied. But there we have we have the Homo economicus, which is selfish and stuff like that, who wants to consume for himself and be alone and on its own. But both of your projects are kind of like need people and need structures where people are like organized. And would you say for a more environmental friendly Berlin, we kind of need to change as people, or the view from us on people has to change?
Maybe I can start, or do you want? So first, I wanted to say that it's still so much important to stay motivated. Also, if you see that your own impact is not that big as you wish that it would be, but it's very, very important to stay motivated, and also to make clear or to see that you will not have as an own person the capacity to really make such a big impact and to save the world or whatever. So it is more important also to have a look on your own ecological footprint, but what is maybe much more important is your handprint. So what you are communicating about, and also to discuss with people, with your parents, but also with at your work, at university, with your friends. So it's really, really important to discuss, and then to look at people who are also willing to make a change, and then to take political action, because that is also what we said before. At least we need the policy makers to really make an impact, because we can save our own water, our own energy, but when they are still built up fossil energy, whatever, when they are still building big car highways, or so there are so many building projects at the moment which has such a bad impact on the environment itself, and we really need to take a political action to get over the crisis, the environmental crisis. And but it is still needful to stay motivated and not to see if you cannot really reduce, for example, your own plastic use. It's maybe not that important for the world, so maybe then have more look on your handprint. So what you're really communicating and discussing with other people. We all need our little steps, but also the big steps at the same time. So it is not maybe now the time to say we have done everything and already everything went well. It is now more important to really have a look at the policy makers and to get them involved and to say that we want to have a sustainable world. So I think it's just to make clear this important point, to stay motivated and to see that you are not alone, that there are a lot of people who want that change. And now I forget the question you, Johannes, what was it? But
the question was a change of how we see people or communities.
How we see people?
What we think communities look like or people look like, or how we are.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, makes sense. So I guess it is, of course, it is a personal thing. And for example, I'm in a sustainable bubble and talking all the day to people, to climate action people, to people who wants to be so much sustainable. And for me, example, I cannot really understand that there are still people who are not willing to contribute to sustainable development. But I guess that I never had the feeling that when I'm talking to people, they say, I want to have a bad impact on the environment and I want to have the climate change. So nobody really wants to have that, I don't know, that black future for us, but it is more our. So we need to show alternatives, attractive ways, and tell the people how they can get involved. And also now when we are talking, we are, I don't know, some people here, but it is still important to say to each other, stay motivated, get out, do something political things. There's a need of change still, and also stay motivated. We are not alone.
Yeah. You want to say something?
Yeah, I want say something to what Hannah say. For me, we have a huge potential to shift the clubs to green clubs, and that's for me very fascinating. Or to make the city Berlin to a green city, and to make more urban gardening or to share more stuff, for example, tools and so on, or to collaborate more. So and that's fun, and it's a good vision of life, and not we go in a climate crisis and everything goes down. It's not the option. So we have to raise up in a big community and a big movement. And I'm happy that you are here. And okay. And just to your question on what kind of view we have on people, or on and you mentioned the Homo economicus, and that's just a theory or a model. Yeah, it's important that to create a economical theory. So when you look on people, most people are not egoists. They are not they are social, have social behavior and so on. And so I studied sociology, and at first look to the people without a theory and talk with them, and then you understand, are they a little bit Homo economicus, or are because it's just a theory and not the reality. So that's the difference. And from my point of view, I think most people are Homo sociologicus. They know that when they behave social, that's more economical and more climate friendly. An example: when you share your stuff, when you share your books at home with your friends, when you share your tools or your toys, then it's very economical, because you need less resources, you need less money, you have better community with your friends and with your family. So that's social impact and economical impact are connected. And the third dimension is that this is the collaborative consumption style is also have a CO2 impact. So every three dimension of the triangle are connected: the social one, the economical one, and the ecological one, with sharing. That's my point. That's what I want to point out. Yeah. So Homo economicus is nice for building markets, we want to have a sustainable city of people connected with each other. So that's and we need also a theoretical shift in not just a real shift. So
and also I think that you can get the economic pillar of sustainability involved. So it is also possible to have a sustainable economy. And also, I would not say that all economics are wrong on the wrong way. We just have to show that the climate crisis is really a crisis which will affect all of us and us now affecting people. So people are dying in cause of, for example, environmental disasters in cause of the climate change. So now everyone can ask themselves, it is now possible, or it is now time to really act more sustainable to get over this crisis or not. And I think that also economic systems can really help us out of that crisis. And we also need to focus on the economic, that is clear. And for example, I would suggest Maya Göpel. I don't know if you ever heard of her. She is one of the initiators of Scientists for Future. And she is an economist, and she wrote about sustainable economy. And it's really interesting to see her ideas of how we could really use economic systems to get more sustainable at the end.
Okay, thank you. One last question about economics, but now on a personal level. Because Nicola, you didn't say yet, how does the lending shop actually fund himself? How does it work?
The financial fund, but at first I want to say that we have to create some models or some organizations that behave more sustainable. So you shift from a personal way to a more organizational way, to a meta form, not macroeconomy and not microeconomy. I mean meso, the middle. And organizations are, for example, clubs or or ein Unternehmen, a company, or a library, or I don't know. So that's very important that we have this middle level. It's very important for the sustainable development, because libraries can have a sharing service. They can start lending a ladder or lending garden stuff for the people who use the library. And then you can, with the garden stuff, you can make more urban gardening, for example. So and the fund is same like in a library. You have a membership fee, and then you have the access to a wide range of things. For example, you go in a library, you have a lot of access to books. When we start more and more sharing things, you have a wide range of things like everything you can imagine. For example, this one, or a ladder or a bag, or So that's membership fee is the form you can fund it, and it's very important that we have the personal view, and we need something like platforms. We need a collaboration of every people of the memberships, and so the form we create platforms is very important. That we have participant platforms, not like Google or Facebook organized platforms. We have to make it more local and more like an idea of commons. So people can participate in, for example, in Berlin, to support a sharing platform. And then you can make it in every part of Berlin, for example, Friedrichshain or Mitte or Reinickendorf, and you can start local sharing points. That you have not a long way to go to a sharing place, So, and on the other side, you can start sharing in, for example, a WhatsApp group or a Telegram group. You say, oh, I invite my friends, and then you can upload what you like to share with other people. And maybe I have this little game that everyone can write down what he or she can contribute to such a Telegram group. Yeah, this is maybe we can do something like this.
Right. Great. Yeah, just I would be interested to see. Maybe we can try it, Nikolai. Do you want to introduce what it's about?
Yeah, so every one of the participants can take a sheet and a pen, and then we write down what we can share with at first your friends. And look in your flat, and maybe we have 2 or 3 minutes, and then we can show it to the other people. Yeah.
By the way, I also think that that the idea is such wonderful because the people also get in touch while using the library, and they start to discussing maybe about climate action, and also get in touch, and also that you really know your neighbors and maybe can build up some local systems. So I also think this is very nice idea because also of the communication aspect of those stores. Yeah, that's nice. It's good to hear.
Great. Okay, Nikolai, then I would just ask the people here what maybe you want to share. Maybe also just turn your microphone on and just share maybe some things that you can show it, some food, some cooking supplies. If you have a bicycle, a longboard. Yeah, I would like to ride my longboard again because I don't have one. Toolbox, the screwing machine. Then knowledge for repair. Okay, nice. Devices of any kind. Tents. Cool. Really, really nice. I have a hammock. I have this hammock if anyone wants to lie in a hammock for a while. Great. Okay, thanks a lot. It's really interesting to see how both of you really talk a lot about the community level and how the community level is extremely important. And if we move a bit from our kietzes and from our neighborhoods, and I would like to talk a bit about, so Berlin wants to become climate neutral, and this is really nice. So one because we as a Kippo collective, we work on climate justice. So one question for us is, what do we do about all of these emissions that are not happening right here in Berlin? Because if we count what our impact is, we usually don't count on the impact where it's produced. So if we see the CO2 emissions in China, for example, they are quite high, but the question is, are they so high because people consume so much, or are they high because people produce? So I would like to have your views on what is the justice issue with this, like where are the emissions and what can we do about it, and what do you think should be done maybe to really think about not only us here, but also about how we can make this juster. Yeah, maybe if you have an idea, you can feel free to share.
Very difficult question, but I try. Climate justice at first on personal level. So we have, I think, 11 tons CO2 emissions every year, every person. Yeah. And so climate justice means, I think, 4 or 3 tons or less, 3 tons CO2 emissions. 2 emissions means 2 per year. So what we did we do on our platform? We have our lending platform COSUM, and we have something like a CO2 counter for every profile. So when you become a member on COSUM, you have, for example, when you borrow a ladder for 20 days, then you have for example, that means 40 gram CO2 equivalent is saved. So you need something a little bit like a CO2 monitoring for yourself to make it visible, to understand what is your impact on consumption in just every action. Yeah, and so that's more concrete than a very systematic question is if we have to consume less from China. But sure, we have to consume less, and we have to reuse more stuff and repair more stuff. For example, electrical things to reduce our CO2 footprint. Yeah, and yeah, that's my answer at first.
All right, thanks a lot. So what I hear from you is that in a way, it's really a good idea still, and it still makes even more sense to share things, because then we produce our footprint here. And that's kind of, that for me makes also a lot of sense, because then if we look at our footprint, it's really huge. And we have to also sometimes look at what are part of the calculations for these footprints. And why do we do very good sometimes? Maybe it's because we forget calculations and we forget emissions along the value chain. So the only option is to realize probably that we have more. And what can we do? Like you say, we can try to that the things we have, even if they come from different parts of the world, it still makes sense to share them and to reuse them. That's kind of what I hear is your answer. Hannah, do you also want to share something?
Yes. Yes, that's of course a big reason to have a focus on its own consumption level, but also over that, I guess, also for the young people and maybe the people who want to discuss on how to become more sustainable worldwide, it is of course also good to have a focus on international networks like Friday for Future or whatever. There are also other networks for climate protection. And I think it is very useful to discuss with people all over the world about climate action and to really have an idea what's going on in other countries. And over that, of course, this is a political question. And there was a new law on sustainable supply chain, which was, I think, developed last year, but we need to do more of these things. And our main aim also for the German politics should be to have sustainable supply chain also to other countries. So this is really also a question to the politics. And this is maybe also a good point for you or for your ideas. I think you want to come up to the politicians and to say them what you want to have, and maybe those sustainable supply chain and how to get the products involved from other countries, and to make it at first transparent so that you can really see where it comes from and that all the people who are buying the things know where it comes from. Maybe also to make that more seeable in, like, for example, web online shops like Amazon or whatever, to really have maybe to do a law and to say to them that they have to show where it comes from and maybe to see the CO2 emissions or whatever. So really to make it more conscious, or to create more conscious about that topic, also to people who have no idea what is happening in other countries.
All right, thanks a lot for already picking this up. Yeah, I think we have one question that really connects well to this, right, Johannes?
Yeah, because you already talked about what needs to be done actually, for example, by the city administration, or in your point, actually, overall view on politics. But the question to you too is now, like, what has to change? What demands? Because in this, during those talks, or at the conference, we are trying to find out demands to the politics in Berlin. So what are yours? First, on a general basis, if it comes to consumption in Berlin, but also for your projects in detail. Hannah, do you want to start?
Yes, I can try to start, because this is also, yes, a kind of big question and also a good one. Yeah, maybe I start with the project. Of course, for the club owners or all the clubs in Berlin, now it's quite difficult to just stay, to be there, and to get their own, to have at least a number of years that they know how long they can stay on the location, because a lot of the clubs are in, maybe you can help me, Zwischennutzung. This is I don't know, a word for when, for example, clubs goes to areas where they want to build, I don't know, also a car or a highway or something, and then the clubs are able to stay there until the project is coming and get built up. So, for example, that was the case in About Blank. This is one of the clubs in Berlin. It's located at Ostkreuz, and they have the problem that they could go there to build some things up, but they do not know how long they can stay. So now they can stay a bit longer, but for example, the clubs need the knowledge how long they can stay, also to have a look on the climate action, for example, when they want to have solar energy or something, and they know that they are still there for some months. No one will build these things up, because you have to know a guarantee for example, 10 years, that you really know that it is also a financial benefit for them. So what would be very helpful for the clubs, of course, is to have those guarantee to stay, or to also to get them places where they can have a long stay perspective. So the perspective for the development is very, very important, and it's not the case that the clubs have the feeling that the cities wants to be there and stay there. Of course, everyone say that clubs are a big thing for the culture in Berlin, also for the international culture. But yeah, when you ask the clubs, they do not have the feeling that they really get understand by the politicians. But also everyone, also the politicians, wants to have a sustainable club culture scene, and therefore they need to know how long they can stay. So this is definitely one of the main points, also to get climate action in the clubs. And one point which was already also last year, I guess, when they called out clubs as cultural heritages, and now they are seen as important buildings or places to be. This is also a very good step and a big step the politicians have taken in the parliament last year. So to say also a positive example. And on a general level, what should be done to ensure climate action is, of course, I guess, to have a more clear, transparent paper, or to really see the decisions that politicians make. And but this is partly, or this is I think this is a question to each party itself, because some of them do not have any climate action policies in their Wahlprogramm, in their voting, or now it is the big year. Yeah, and they it would be nice to really see that they want to take action and not just to show some number, which are not very convincing at the end. So it would cool to see that they're really interested in, and to see numbers that are realistic to have the aim of the 1.5 aim degree at least. So it would. This is also my wish for the year, that they will come out with some really good climate protection papers. But as you can see now, it is not the case, and there's a need of the pressure from all the people, from the communities, that they are still mentioned that they want to have more climate action in their political programs.
Okay, thank you. Nikolai, what do you think? And maybe also think about climate justice in a matter, like how do sustainable consumption and justice come together, and which things do you think would change on a policy level?
Very difficult. At first,
you don't have to have the perfect answer.
But I try. But at first, my political approach, I would because one participant say, what can we do now? It's very important not to wait until we have a green, or we have an ecological friendly government. So what can we do now, and how can we do it? Solve problems now and create climate justice now. Yeah. So for me, it's very important that everyone starts eat less meat, drive more bicycle, and for sure share more stuff, and buy less stuff. Yeah, or buy. Yeah. So that's I think the political action. Yeah, what we can do, and to start communities where you share stuff, and that's you can do now, and not wait until September when we have the elections in Berlin. So that's very important for me, and I prepared a draft. Now it's in the chat, and I write down some demands, and one is, for example, that Berlin has to make a platform where, for example, libraries of things start or are participants. For example, in Pankow, we have some libraries and they lend stuff. For example, a power drill, or little games, or music box, and so on. And we need every library in Berlin to start something like a sharing service. And also the schools, or the universities, or or the clubs. Yeah, the clubs can start borrow each from club to club, or from the club to the members. So that's my my vision, and they can do it with no election. They can say we want a CO2 friendly consumption, so we start sharing. Yeah, so that's the action we can do right now. And the other stuff, the other thing is that with climate justice, that's every time a ethical issue. So when we behave or when we think ethical, then we act with more justice. And on the other side, we need something like a monitoring, that we know, everyone has a CO2 footprint, and what is the goal of your personal CO2 emissions, or of the CO2 emissions of Berlin, and then then we can have to go to this goal and say we have 3 million people in Berlin, and everyone can make 2 tons of CO2 emissions every year. So that means we have 6 and so on million tons of CO2 emissions. What is okay? Yeah, and okay. So and we need, I think, every time more meetings like this to go on the path to a climate-friendly economy and society, and that's very important. That the political on the support some conferences like this, and also the actions, that the politics support the platform, support the CO2 monitoring of a platform, or for the libraries of things. And one very important demand is that the schools have something like ein Schulfach, some lessons or lectures of climate-friendly consumption. I hope it's a little bit now in the schools, but I think you can do more actions in the schools, and and so on. Yeah. Okay.
Great. Okay. Thanks, both of you, very, very much. We're approaching the countdown, and now we would like to go into something very small, where we quickly, each of you, just take 1 minute or 2 minutes, and you can also sit back for just a second and kind of go into the vision. We've heard the keywords. We have to do things now. Things have to happen. I think this is something that youth is really concerned about, that things are not moving too fast. But what if we think about like how we want to see, looking at consumption, how we want to see Berlin in the next 30 years? What is our vision looking at consumption and sustainability in 2030? And I think there are enough things we can think about, and enough things that were said here right now. So just feel free for 2 minutes and think about it, and write down 3 words that express this for you. So what is your vision for 2030? Okay, I see faces almost coming up onto the screen again. All right, you don't have to explain the words, but maybe if you feel like it would be really nice to hear your words. Anyone wants to start?
Yeah, I would like to start.
Okay, go, Anna.
And when that is okay, because I wanted to say that before you ask the question, and also Nikolai say now we have to start now, not in 2030, but as this was the question, I just wrote down clubs are official sharing points, and this would of course, and I will. I will definitely ask, that is my time of action now, the clubs. We have now a round table with club owners, and I will ask them what would they need, maybe also from a political view, or maybe from us, to maybe, to have a sharing room or to offer their own drills and things like that. And maybe, of course, this would be a dream for the future, that the whole city is connected. And just imagine you can get out to, and you need something, you want to buy, I don't know, something in your flat. And then you go just to a club and say, you need this and this. And I don't know, maybe it's also the same idea Nikolai have with this, with his own project. But I guess that is also the aim, to have this as a pilot project, and that other, for example, clubs maybe could adapt the system, and maybe also the borrow system. And then that would be awesome if you just could go out and need something. You do not have to buy it new. You can just borrow it, and it would be cool.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Maybe other people want to share. You also looking at the time, you can just read out or show your words into the camera. We have Marie, community sharing is caring, oldie but goldie, happiness, economy, why we shop. Johannes, it's hard to see. Urban farming, clean energy, neighborhoods.
It's sorry, just some words. I write down why we shop. Yeah, because in the preparation of this meeting, I asked myself why is consumption important for myself, or in general, and that's very important to make a shift in your own behavior, to say, oh, meeting more friends is brings you happiness, or brings more fun than shopping. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Also the change we need in general in society. Sorry to interrupt you, but also, I mean, the question is not only why we are willing to buy things, also why we are able to use the plane to go to another country. So often the times is why we have the possibilities and why we are acting like this, and if we really have to do it like this. So this is a big change, a cultural change, which is needed. Also, there are a lot of other topics where we have to consult.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, everyone. Just before I pass over the word for the closing from my side, I actually have community and fun also on as part of my 3 words, because this is something I really learned from this today's session that I didn't think about too much. Thanks a lot. And I'll hand over to Johannes for the closing of today's session, because the 90 minutes are almost over already.
Okay. Actually, I didn't have 3 words. I had no advertisement for consuming products, because I thought maybe looking at a completely different direction, but whatever. I don't want to have the last word. Oh, well, I will have, but at first, I want to close it all. And we talked today about consumption and how on a consumer community-based level, we can change things a lot. And we talked about what actually needs to be done on a personal level, but also on a political level and stuff like that. And before we have a look at the whole talk from Yannick and the Miro board, I wanted to ask for feedback actually from the audience. So if there was something you liked or you didn't like, now's the time. You can share it with us, because if we go back to how do communities work? Communities work with feedback loops the whole time. So it would be nice for this community now Marie?
Yes, I really like the session today. I learned a lot, but I missed our small stretching session in between. Actually, we did it the last time. And yeah. But thank you, Nikolai, and thank you, Hannah, for the great input. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. We can maybe stretch afterwards. Does anyone else have feedback? Good. Right now. So and do this. Yeah. Conor, you want to say something?
Me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, for me also, it was a good session. I think we have to communicate more and more about this stuff. I'm very glad that you show us what's possible, Nikolai and Hannah too. And I can say at this moment, thank you very much. I'm going to support all these ideas as, yes, in the possibilities I have here in the Senate department. And I think with Clubtopia, we have a very good project that's going on now. And I also think that that what Nikolai said, sharing platforms are also a good possibility to share more the possibilities, and also the knowledge about the stuff. Therefore, I wrote a lot, and I'm going to think about what we can do more and more in this topic. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Well, then I'll just hand over to Yannick to see what he wrote on the Miro board.
Sure. I also wrote down a lot, not only Ms. Conrad Beck. Just let me share my screen with you. Please let me know if you can see this, right? Yeah. So as I introduced in the beginning, we will develop this board over the course of the Young Climate Campus further and further. You can already see that we wrote a lot down for last week, and today I'm zooming in on private households and consumption, where you once again can see that we have a lot of input from this discussion. So first talking about, sorry, zooming in a little bit further, about the impact we all can make as consumers, and the question, does it really make a difference, or is it maybe just a drop in the ocean? We were talking among other aspects about the decoupling of consumption from emissions, and there already we have this community and collaborative aspect, which we really find like a red thread through the whole event, as Felix also pointed out, that the community and collaborative aspect of the economy was pointed out many times. Then of course sharing in its manifold possibilities and styles, and also the question or actually a new sense of ownership that is kind of created by this system. Here we're talking a lot about awareness, raising awareness among the people that it actually impacts, which is everybody pretty much, with very practical examples, of course, from the club scene, but also from the sharing economy scene. And also, once again, the question of the economic perspective coming together with the ecological and the social aspect, of course. Here we discussed a lot of open questions, and down here I'm going to zoom in once more. This was a very interesting question in my opinion, and you can see that a lot of points originated from there. The indirect emissions, so the ones not originating in Berlin, and the question of climate justice. So we took a look beyond the Keats, as Felix said, at how our consumption is kind of interdependent with emissions elsewhere. This was a big block as well. The block, I call it action, because it was the question, what demands do you have from politics? What frameworks do you need? And we have a lot of ideas and demands, also not for elections, but between elections. I really like that point that Nikolai made about can't wait for a green government, we need to act now. So a lot here actually that we can harvest for the rest of the campus. And then I just wrote down some responses that we had to the 3 words question at the end. What do you want to see for Berlin 2030 in your own keywords? And some feedback. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Yannick, sorry. Yeah, so I would say we're at the end now, a little bit over the time, but I guess that's okay. Thanks. Next time on the 15th of April, we'll actually talk about energy, which we already almost hit today, but energy is always kind of in the middle of a lot of discussions, so no wonder. And I guess it's going to be really interesting. So come back on the 15th of April. It will be the 3rd part of these talks. But for today, I hope you had a good time. Some said they had a good time. That's already really cool. And maybe we'll see each other on the 15th again. And bye. And thank you to Nikolai and Hannah, obviously, for coming.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.